the concrete value of adopting a single reference model for digital libraries?
A single reference model for digital libraries. I'm going to go back. I'm going to answer that in a slightly different way than you answered. I'm going to draw on some conversations that we had during the working group meeting. And the point that I come as I reflect back on those activities that have truly inspired some creative work within the information sciences. And so I look at projects like Trek and like Clay and those kinds of ones, where we've been able to conceive of a fundamental model and a fundamental approach that doesn't necessarily grab everybody's necessary intentions or best ideas, but provides a sufficiently concrete foundation and a direction that everybody who is interested in that can see that, can work on that, can come to in my case, a competition, and show what they can do in that space under those auspices. So one of the things we learned from Trek, and I think you've learned from Clay also, is that when you put that out, it's not only the people that you're funding or that are part of your community that come to the table to participate in that conversation. It's others as well that want to demonstrate their capacity. Corporations come because they want to show that they can do this as well. In fact, they can do better than perhaps some of the universities are doing. So I think it requires something like a common reference model, a common problem statement, something that can garner the interest of a large community and focus their interests towards a particular problem domain. I think that's where a reference model comes into play.
Do you see any need for it? In some sense, you have already answered the question.
Well, in fact, I have. I think there's a strong need for it, and if nothing else, we've learned from our conversations this afternoon and our experiences over the past 10 years how complex such an undertaking is. So I don't in any way mean to suggest this is a simple process. It's a dialogue that's been going on since Delos' Network of Excellence in Digital Libraries first started working. So it's incredibly important, it's incredibly complicated and complex, and as has been pointed out a number of times today, the deeper we get into it, the more rich and complex it is that we see the problem is. So yeah, I think it's extremely important.
How could DLORG, in your opinion, work towards resolving interoperability problems among digital libraries?
You've already pulled together the world's leaders in the space, certainly from Europe, certainly from the US. And we have some people in the session from Asia and Africa as well. I think just launching the conversation in places like this is incredibly important, providing opportunities for people to interact with each other. I was flipping through the DL.org pamphlet this afternoon during the session and listening to the conversations that are going on. It's by far the most comprehensive attempt yet to capture the whole space of digital library research and development that needs to be done, and I think it is going to become the forum for considering that.
What are the concrete initiatives or steps that should be undertaken?
I think we learn an awful lot by doing. And I know a lot of our conversation today has been around thinking in the abstract, and that's an important piece too, but unless we follow it up immediately with doing, I think we do ourselves a disservice. Then the question comes down to what do we do and how do we proceed to do that? And that's where I think the power of a reference model leveraged with some form of the types of grand challenge problems, very long-term, exciting opportunities, framed in a way that a large community can understand that, brings to bear the types of skills that are useful. So I think the DL.org now has a really good sense of what the abstractions are. And you've laid out a wonderful reference model, very complex, no question about that. But you've been very articulate in describing what that is. And so now it seems to me the question is, how do we take that work that very nice abstract work in a number of different ways and map that into some of the things that have actually been done now. I think somebody suggested during the conversation today that putting students on the task of looking at projects that have already been done and then trying to map them into the reference model would be a useful thing to do. That's very cheap to do too, right? Students are looking for great projects to do, and they could make a wonderful contribution. But then the next challenge, it seems to me, is going to be beyond looking retrospectively, trying to take that reference model and look to the future and find ways that we can collectively engage the governments in the European Union, those in the U.S., towards larger scale projects, perhaps than we've tried before. And I know we've had some level of success at collaborative projects between, particularly the U.S. and Europe. We need to find ways to do more of those. And it's not going to be another digital library initiative. We need to think of another way to frame it. But the problems are so incredibly important, and you've done such nice work in beginning to lay the foundation for that. And I think we need to look retrospectively as well as look forward at what kinds of concrete projects we can pursue at this point.
What is currently missing from DLorg?
Actually, I think you would probably agree with me in saying that we've actually just answered that question too. And that its strength is in the comprehensiveness of the abstract reference model that it's developed. What remains to be done is taking that reference model and instantiating that in concrete ways so we can better understand what it means in different contexts. How would we take, let's say, the quality discussion that we just left before the coffee break and map it into some very concrete things that are not just checklists on somebody's list, but become enablers towards the development of new capabilities that we haven't had before. So I think it's instantiation, which is the things that we need to start thinking about now.
Thank you.